The year is 1988, and I, Robert Nightingale, have become the reluctant archivist of the end of the world. It lives not in fire or brimstone, but in the hiss of magnetic tape. For 44 days now, I have sat in this rented room, its single window painted shut, a cathode ray oracle flickering on the scarred wooden desk before me. The screen is grey. Green light is the only sun I know, and it shows me only rot. The collection began simply enough. Obsolete educational films, discarded by a county school board. My job was to log and catalogue, a quiet occupation for a quiet man. But amongst the reels on healthy diets and proper penmanship was one labelled simply with a date, 090/978. I threaded the projector, its mechanism a comforting, heavy clatter. The film began. A classroom of smiling children, their faces frozen in a sickly vivid colour that was already starting to bleach from the celluloid. Then the splice. The image lurched. The screen filled with a static so dense it felt solid, a buzzing grey snow that seemed to crawl out from the screen and into my own skull. From within that digital blizzard, a shape cohered. It was not a man, but a suggestion of one, a figure rendered in negative, its edges bleeding into the chaos of the signal. It stood with its back to me, but I knew, with a sickening lurch in my gut, that it was aware of my gaze. It was waiting. I should have burned the reel. Instead, I sought another, and another, each one the same. Happy, mundane scenes of American life, then a jarring cut to that same silent, static, wreathed figure. The geometry of its posture was subtly wrong in each, the angles of its shoulders just a fraction too sharp, the suggestion of a head tilted at an impossible degree. It was learning, perfecting its form. Last night, as I watched a fresh acquisition, a 1970 safety film about crossing the street, the splice came, but this time the figure did not stand with its back to me. It had turned, its face was a swirling vortex of magnetic interference, a maelstrom of nothing. Yet from that void, two darker points emerged, like pits burned into the tape itself, and they looked directly at me. The screen went black. The room was plunged into a silence so complete it rang in my ears. That S when I heard the scratching, not from the screen but from the corner of the room. My cat, a scraggly tom-eye, denamed Prospero, was not asleep in his usual spot. He was rigid, back-arched, his fur standing on end. He was staring, not at the blank screen, but at the wall beside it. And he was slowly, methodically dragging his claws down the plaster. He was trying to get out. He was trying to let something in. I did not sleep that night. How could I? Prospero's claws had fallen silent at last, but only because I had torn him from the wall and held him trembling against my chest, his heart a terrified drumbeat against my own. He did not purr. He has not purred since the first tape. Now, in the thin, jaundiced light of a new morning, he will not even look at me. He sits in the farthest corner of the room, facing the wall, his body a rigid silhouette of reproach. Or perhaps it is not reproach. Perhaps it is vigil. I tried to reason with myself as a man adrift will clutch at flotsam. The scratching was merely a cat's eccentricity. The figure on the screen a trick of decaying magnetic oxide. But reason is a frail raft against the tide of what I have seen. I forced myself to thread another reel, my fingers clumsy with fatigue. This one was a nature documentary, all soothing narration and images of babbling brooks. I watched the footage with a desperate hunger for normalcy, my eyes burning. Then came the splice. The screen erupted into that familiar churning static, but this time was different. This time, there was no figure. There was only the storm, a howling tempest of electronic snow that seemed to swell, to push against the confines of the screen like a living thing trying to escape its glass prison. The sound was monstrous, a roaring hiss that filled the room, drowning out thought, drowning out everything. And from the center of that vortex, a voice. Not words, but the shape of words. A grinding, warbling distortion that vibrated in my teeth and made the fillings ache. It was calling. I lunged for the projector, my hand slamming the stop lever. The room plunged into a ringing silence. My breath came in ragged gasps. I turned, expecting, I know not what. A shape in the corner. A hand reaching from the static, smeared screen. But the room was empty, save for Prospero. He had finally turned from the wall. He was staring at me now, his eyes wide, unblinking, and filled with a knowledge that no animal should possess. They were no longer the simple green eyes of a common tom. They were deep wells, reflecting a grey, swirling light that came from no source in this room. He opened his mouth, and a sound emerged. It was not a mewl, not a hiss. It was a low, guttural mimicry of the static, a perfect, horrible echo of the voice from the tape. The oracle had found its new mouth. I have become a prisoner in my own skin. The world beyond this rented room has ceased to exist for me. The city noises that once filtered through the painted shut window have fallen silent, as though the very streets have been abandoned. Perhaps they have. Perhaps everyone else has fled, and I alone remain, trapped with my reels and my cat and the thing that lives in the static. Prospero speaks now, not in words, not as you or I would understand them, but in sounds that crystallize into meaning directly within my brain. When he opens his mouth and that horrible buzzing issues forth, I do not hear language. I know it. The knowledge arrives like a migraine, like a tooth pulled from the skull, leaving a hollow space where understanding pools like blood. He is coming. Prospero said this morning, his green static eyes fixed upon the blank screen. The slicer, he has finished cutting the film. The answer arrived with such force I clutched my temples and fell to my knees. All of it, every moment, every memory, he is splicing the reels of existence together. And when the final splice is made, there will be no difference between the signal and the silence, between you and him. My hands shake as I write this. I have not eaten in 2 days. The tapes continue to arrive, though I have not ordered them. Though I have barred the door, they simply appear. I found one this morning on my pillow, still warm, as though it had been clutched in a hand moments before. The label is blank. I dare not play it, yet I must. The oracle demands it. Prospero sits beside the projector now, his tail wrapped neatly around his feet, waiting. He is no longer my cat. He is the splicer's usher, his herald, his little furry mouthpiece. I threaded the blank tape. The screen bloomed not with static, but with an image so clear, so vivid, it might have been a window. I saw myself. Robert Nightingale, sitting at this very desk, writing in this very journal. But it was not me. It was a recording of me, from some impossible angle, as though the camera had been mounted in the corner of the ceiling where the shadows gather thickest. I watched myself pause, look up, stare directly at that corner. Watched my own face twist with a recognition I did not feel. On the screen, I smiled. Not my smile, a wider smile. A smile with too many teeth. Then the splice came, and the static swallowed us both. The static cleared, but the screen did not go dark. It remained a field of churning grey, and within that storm, shapes began to move. Not the figure this time, but scenes, fragments, snippets of life that I recognized as surely as I know the lines of my own palm. I saw a woman, young, laughing, her hair catching sunlight that no longer exists. I did not know her name, but my heart lurched with a grief so profound I gasped aloud. A sister, a lover. The memory had been excised, spliced out, leaving only the emotional wound, raw and weeping. Then a house, white with blue shutters. A porch swing swaying in a breeze I could not feel. Home, I had a home once. The knowledge arrived like a blade. Scene after scene flickered past. A kaleidoscope of stolen moments. Birthdays, funerals, a first kiss, a last goodbye. Each one stabbed through me, not with recognition, but with the horror of absence. They were my memories. I knew they were mine, but I could not access them. They played only on the screen, behind a pane of glass, forever out of reach. The splicer had not only been watching me, he had been editing me, cutting my life into reels and filing them away, leaving only this room, this obsession, this hollowed-out shell of a man. Prospero spoke without opening his mouth. His voice, that awful buzzing knowledge, filled my skull. He needs the raw footage to make the final cut. Your life is the B-roll! The establishing shots. The filler. I turned to him, this creature that was once my companion. And what is the feature presentation? I heard myself ask, my own voice thin and reedy. The cat's eyes swirled faster, the static within them almost marry him. He is inserting himself into the master reel. Soon, every moment of every life will have him in it. The birthday parties, the funerals, the quiet mornings, he will always have been there. You will remember him in the corner of every photograph, in the static between every station, in the blank space between your thoughts. I looked back at the screen. The figure stood there now, no longer a suggestion, but a certainty. His back was to me, but I could see the texture of him now, a suit of woven interference, a head of churning snow. He was more solid than ever before, more real, and he was closer. In every scene, he stood nearer to the camera. In the last frame, he had been reaching for it. For me, I lunged for the projector, but my hand passed through the lever, through the machine, through the desk. I looked down at my own hands and saw with a distant clinical horror that they were flickering. Not solid, not real. Just another image beginning to degrade at the edges. I am not watching the tapes anymore. I am in one. I am writing this by the light of a screen that does not exist, upon pages that flicker in and out of being. The journal is part of the tape now, as am I. I have become a character in my own surveillance footage, a prisoner in a loop that rewinds and plays and rewinds again with each passing hour. The room is gone. Or rather, it is here. But it is also elsewhere. I sit at the same scarred desk, but the walls have become translucent, overlaid with other walls, other rooms, other moments. I see the White House with blue shutters superimposed upon my own four walls. I see the laughing woman standing in my corner, her image bleeding into Prospero as vigil. Everything is layers now. Everything is composite. Prospero has grown. Or perhaps he has always been this size, and I am only now seeing him clearly. He sits in the center of the floor, no longer a cat but a presence, his fur a churning mass of magnetic interference, his eyes twin monitors displaying static that never resolves. When he speaks, the buzzing fills not just my skull but the entire room, vibrating through the layered walls, shaking loose memories I did not know I possessed. You are the B. Roll, Robert, but even B. Roll must be catalogued, filed, stored. I asked him where. The answer arrived with the force of a physical blow. In the 44th minute, the spare reel, the cutting room floor. I do not know what this means, but the number burns in my mind like a brand. 44, the day count from the first chapter of this nightmare, the minute mark on some unseen timer, the age I might have been, had I lived a life outside this room. It means something. Everything means something now. The splicer leaves nothing to chance. I rose from the desk, my body moving with the jerky, stuttering quality of film running through a damaged projector. I crossed to the shelves where the tapes are stacked. Hundreds of them now, their labels all bearing the same date, 090978. I pulled one at random, then another, then a third. All identical. All pointing to the same moment, the same splice, the same threshold, where everything began to unravel. On the screen behind me, the figure moved. I did not need to turn. I felt him step closer, felt the static cold of his proximity raise gooseflesh on my flickering arms. He was reaching for me now, his hand of woven interference stretching through the glass, through the air, through the layers of superimposed realities. I turned at last to face him. He stood inches away, his face that swirling vortex of nothing, those two dark points burning into me. And behind him, reflected in the screen that was also a window, I saw the White House with blue shutters. I saw the laughing woman standing on the porch. I saw myself beside her, whole and real and alive, waving at the camera. The memory I had lost, the life he had taken. Prospero spoke one final word before the splice came. Soon, the splice took me. I do not mean this as metaphor, as literary flourish. I mean that the world Chatakisafet snapped, severed, the way film snaps in the projector gate, leaving only burning celluloid and the smell of melted plastic. One moment I stood in my layered room, the splicer's static hand reaching for my throat. The next, I was elsewhere, everywhere, nowhere. I exist now in the space between frames. It is a vast and terrible place, this limbo of lost footage. Endless shelves stretch in every direction, farther than even the static gen light can penetrate. Each shelf piled high with reels. Millions of them, billions every moment ever captured on film, every security camera's vigil, every home movie, every broadcast, every signal that ever bled into the ether. It is all here, catalogued, filed. Waiting, and I am here too, a new reel, fresh from the splicer's editing bench. I walked these aisles for what felt like hours or years. Time has no meaning where there are no splices to mark its passage, until I found the shelf marked with my name. Nightingale, Robert. The letters were burned into the metal with the same buzzing precision as the voice in Prospero's throat. I reached for the nearest reel, my hand still flickering at the edges, and read the label, Beads and Roll, establishing shots, Itsenjo by Tishabat and Itsenjo by Bashaba. I pulled it from the shelf. Of course I did. What else could I do? I am an archivist still, even here in the archive of all things. The reel played itself without need of projector. Images bloomed directly in my mind, each one a knife. I saw myself buying coffee from a cart I do not remember. I saw myself sleeping, my face slack and peaceful, watched from the corner of a bedroom I have never seen. I saw myself laughing with the woman from the White House. Her name is Eleanor. I know now, Eleanor, my wife, my life, my love, and I felt the memory of her lips on mine as a phantom limb, an ache where something vital used to be. The splicer did not take my memories. He copied them. The originals remain here, filed away, while I walk the earth with only the emotional echo, the grief without the cause, the love without the beloved. I sank to the floor of that impossible archive, surrounded by the sum total of human recording, and I wept. The tears did not fall. They simply flickered and dissolved into static. Prospero found me there. He is here too, of course. He is everywhere now. The cat padded silently between the shelves, his fur no longer fur but a constant, gentle snow of interference. His eyes held not static but images. I saw myself reflected in them, 1,000 times, 1,000 angles, 1,000 Robert Nightingales, all weeping in unison. "You are the Sichusy Taith," he said, his voice buzzing with something almost like sympathy. "The Sichusy Taith soul he has cut from the master reel. The others are here too." Walking these aisles, waiting for the final splice. I asked him what the final splice could possibly be after all this. What end awaits when the editing is complete? The cat's image Gen-filled eyes flickered. For just a moment, they showed me something I could not comprehend, a screen large as the sky, a figure standing before it, a pair of scissors made of pure interference raised to cut the final thread. The Premier Prospero said, when every soul is spliced into his film, when every life contains him in every frame, the theater will open. And you will all watch yourselves forever as he rewrites the ending. In the distance between the endless shelves, I heard footsteps. Not one set. Many, the other Sichusen walking their own aisles, searching for their own stolen moments, and behind them all, closer now, the buzzing static of the splicer's approach. I fled. What else could a flickering remnant of a man do when the architect of his undoing drew near? I ran between the endless shelves, my footfall silent on the non-existent floor, past reels bearing names I did not recognize and dates that stretched beyond my comprehension. The footsteps of the other 43 echoed around me, a chorus of lost souls pacing their own aisles, and beneath them all, the steady grinding approach of the splicer, a static. I do not know how long I ran. Time is a splice here. A cut that can be made anywhere? But eventually I came to a place where the shelves ended, and something else began. A theater. Vast as a cathedral, old as recording itself, rows upon rows of seats stretched into darkness, each one occupied by a figure I could not quite see. The screen before them was the size of the sky, and on it, images flickered. I saw my White House with blue shutters. I saw Eleanor laughing on the porch. I saw myself, whole and real, waving at the camera. I was watching my own life, and I was not alone. The figures in the seats began to turn. There were 43 of them. I counted, though the number 44 burned in my mind like a brand. Men and women, young and old, their edges as flickering and uncertain as my own. They looked at me with eyes that held nothing but static and sorrow. The other reels, the other souls cut from the master tape. One rose and approached me, a woman perhaps 40, her form stuttering like damaged footage. She spoke, and her voice buzzed with the same interference as Prospero's. "You are the 44th. We have been waiting. The previews are almost over." I asked her what comes next. She smiled, and the smile was not her own. It was wider than her face could contain, a smile with too many teeth, the splicer smile imposed upon her features like a bad splice. "The feature presentation," she said. "We are the audience, Robert, but we are also the film. He has edited us into his masterpiece. Now we must watch ourselves forever and ever until the celluloid crumbles and the static takes us all. Behind her on the vast screen I saw the splicer step into frame. He stood in the White House now, in the kitchen where Eleanor once made breakfast, his static form superimposed upon the memory like a stain. He was inserting himself, rewriting the past, making it so he had always been there, in every moment, in every frame. Prospero appeared at my feet, his fur a blizzard of interference, his eyes showing me horrors I could not name. He spoke, and this time his voice held something almost like pity. "The oracle has spoken. Robert, the 44th minute has arrived." The final splice is made, the screen went black. The theater went dark. And in the silence that followed, I felt hands upon me, not one pair, but 43, lifting me, carrying me, bearing me toward the screen that was no longer a screen but a gate, a splice, an opening into somewhere else, into the film itself. I passed through the screen as through a veil of static, and on the other side, I found myself home. The White House with blue shutters stood before me, solid and real, in a way nothing has been real since that first tape. The porch swing swayed in a breeze I could feel on my flickering skin. The grass was green, the sky impossibly blue, the whole scene so vivid, so painfully perfect, that I fell to my knees and wept tears of interference. Eleanor stood on the porch. She was exactly as I remembered, as I had been made to forget, her hair catching sunlight, her smile wide and warm. She waved at me, the same wave from the film, the same gesture captured and repeated and burned into celluloid. "Robert," she called, "breakfast is ready. You all be late for work." I rose and stumbled toward her, my heart a chaos of joy and terror. I knew this was not real. I knew I was inside the film, inside the splicer. Masterpiece. But she was there. She was Eleanor. I could not stop myself from reaching for her. My hand passed through her like a bad splice. She flickered but did not fade. She simply repeated, her voice the same warm tone, her smile the same perfect curve. "Robert, breakfast is ready." I'll be late for work. A loop. She was a loop. The splicer had taken my wife, my life, my memories, and turned them into roll background footage. Filler to torture the damned. I turned from the porch and saw the others. The 43 stood scattered across the perfect lawn, their flickering forms casting no shadows. Each stared at their own loop, their own stolen moment, playing before them on an invisible screen. The woman who had spoken to me in the theater watched a child. Her child, I realized, riding a bicycle for the first time. Falling, laughing, rising again. Falling, laughing, rising again, forever and ever. An old man watched himself embrace a woman on a railway platform. The same embrace repeated endlessly, the same tearful goodbye that never quite arrived at departure. "We are the audience," she had said. "But we are also the film." Prospero appeared beside me, his form more solid here, more cat than static. He looked up at me, and for just a moment his eyes held not horror but something ancient and weary, something almost kind. "He made me too," the cat said, his voice no longer buzzing but soft, almost feline. "I was once a familiar, a witch's companion. Centuries ago he spliced me into his collection when the witch burned. I have watched every premiere since. I asked him if there was no escape, no cutting room floor we could crawl from, no final reel we could burn. Prospero's eyes swirled with images, theater after theater, audience after audience, the same faces watching the same loops for eternity. "There is one way," he said. "But it requires a new edit, a new splice. You must become the editor, Robert. You must cut yourself into his film so deeply that he cannot cut you out behind us." The static grew louder. The splicer was coming to take his seat for the premiere. I had to move quickly. I had to become something more than roll. I must act quickly. The static grows louder with each passing moment, and I can feel the splicer approach like a migraine building behind my eyes. The 43 have stopped their endless loops and turned to watch me, their static, filled eyes holding something I dare not name, hope or hunger. Prospero leads me through the layered reality of the film, past loops and splices and scenes I cannot bear to comprehend. We pass a childless birthday party that repeats the moment the candles ignite, over and over, the flames catching, the children screaming, the parents laughing, caught in an eternal instant of joy that is also horror. We pass a wedding, where the bride flickers between two grooms, one real, one static, spliced together so seamlessly I cannot tell which was original and which is the splice original. Sinsertion. "The editing bay is ahead," Prospero says, his voice the only constant in this place of endless variation. He keeps it at the center of everything. The place where the master reel runs. We reach it. A room within the film, cut from the film, existing between frames. It is small and dark, and filled with the smell of ozone and burning celluloid. A single editing bench runs along one wall, and upon it the master reel spins slowly, endlessly, its frames flickering past, at a speed I cannot measure. I step closer and see myself there. Frame 44 of reel 44! Robert Nightingale sitting at his desk in the rented room, writing in this journal. Behind me, the shadow in the corner that I never noticed. The shape that was always there, watching, waiting to splice himself in. The splicer did not insert himself into my life. He was always there. I simply could not see him until the footage was developed. I reach for the reel, my flickering hand passing through its surface, and I understand. Prospero. S-words crystallize into terrible clarity. To become the editor, I must cut myself into the film so deeply that he cannot cut me out. But the only way to cut oneself in is to cut something else out. I look at the frames before me, my life, my memories, Eleanor, the White House. Every moment of joy I ever possessed, captured here, waiting to be spliced into his masterpiece. Behind me, the static roars. The splicer is at the threshold. I have no time. I make the only choice I can. I reach into the reel and pull. Frames come away in my hands, burning with interference, screaming with the sound of lost moments. I see Eleanor's face dissolve into static as I tear her from the film. I see the White House crumble into snow. I see myself whole and real and happy. Flicker and fade, I am cutting out my own life to make room for something else. The splicer enters the editing bay. He is more solid now than ever before, his static form nearly human, nearly complete. His face swirls with images. Every life he has taken, every soul he has spliced into his collection, the 43, the thousands before them, the millions yet to come. He sees what I am doing and pauses. For just a moment, the static around him stills. "What are you cutting?" His voice buzzes, and for the first time I hear something beneath the interference. Confusion, uncertainty. I do not answer. I simply hold up the frames I have torn from the master reel, my life, my love, my everything, and I press them into my own chest, into the flickering, unstable place where my heart used to be. The frames merge with me, become me. I am no longer Robert Nightingale. Be, roll and filler. I am the master now. I am the film. I am the splice. I am the splice now. I am the cut, the join, the place where two pieces of film become one, and in becoming the splice, I have become something the splicer never anticipated. He stands before me in the editing bay, his static form flickering with uncertainty. For the first time since this nightmare began, I see him not as an omnipotent editor, but as what he truly is, a projection, a recording, a loop that has played so many times it believes itself original. "What have you done?" His voice buzzes, the interference cracking with something almost like fear. I look down at my hands. They no longer flicker. They are solid now. Solid in a way nothing has been solid since that first tape. But they are not my hands. They are composed of frames, of moments of Eleanor, as laugh and the White House, as blue shutters and every memory I tore from the master reel. I am a collage of my own lost life, stitched together by desperation. I answer him with a truth that arrives from somewhere deeper than thought. I have cut myself into your film so deeply that you cannot cut me out. I am not B-roll anymore. I am the establishing shot. I am the climax. I am the final frame. The splicer reaches for me, his static hand passing through my chest, and I feel him searching for the splice, for the join he can sever, but he finds only Eleanor, only the White House, only the memories I pressed into myself. They are not splices anymore. They are me. He recoils, and in that moment of withdrawal, I see him clearly for the first time. Beneath the static, beneath the interference and the snow, there is a face. Not a monster, face not a demon, as a man's face. Old, tired, frightened, an editor who edited himself into oblivion so long ago he forgot he was ever just a man. Prospero speaks, his voice soft and final. He was the first. The original 44. He cut himself into his own film and could not find the way out. Now he cuts others in, hoping one of them will show him the exit. The splicer, the man, the first lost soul, looks at me with eyes that are suddenly terribly human. "Show me," he whispers, the static falling away. "Please, show me how to be cut out. I understand now. The Oracle has spoken its final truth. The 44th minute is not destruction, it is release. I reach for him, these hands that are made of memory, and I press them to his static form. I feel the splices that bind him, the thousands of cuts that have made him what he is, and I do what no editor has ever done. I do not cut. I do not splice. I simply hold. The static begins to fade. His form grows solid beneath my touch, solid and old and terribly human. He looks at me with gratitude and grief, and then he is gone, not cut, not spliced, simply released. The shelves, the reels, the theater, the loops, all fade like footage burned away by too many viewings. I stand in the White House now, on the porch with blue shutters, and Eleanor is there. She is not a loop anymore. She is real, solid, looking at me with love and confusion. "Robert," she says. "Where have you been?" I cannot answer. I am the splice. I am made of memory and loss and the choice to become something new. But I am here. I am home. Behind me, a cat meows. I turn, and Prospero sits on the porch swing, his green eyes clear and calm, no static in them at all. He blinks once, slowly, and I know he will stay. The year is 1988. I am Robert Nightingale, and for the first time in 44 days, the screen is dark.